Tonight on CFTK-TV, Canada condemns China over executions on dual citizens, the issues of transporting alcohol between different provinces, and positive signs in parts of BC's wildlife.
Northwest BC's only television news team. We are CFTK-TV News.
Hello, I'm Damian Smith, and thank you for joining us here on CFTK-TV. Well, back in late October of last year, the Smithers RCMP put out a request looking for help from the public to find a man named Jonathan Wilson that was wanted at the time. And after a search that lasted several months, the Smithers police force discovered Wilson when they executed a search warrant at a residence in Fort Babine. Wilson was arrested at the scene, and he has since been charged with obstructing a peace officer, forcible confinement, failing to comply with a probation order, failing to comply with an undertaking, as well as assault by choking. Wilson is still in custody as he currently awaits a future court date. Now moving over to Kitimat, a vessel is now on its way to deliver a liquefied natural gas cargo to the marine terminal. But as of right now, the cargo won't be for export. Here's Jayleen Matthews of CFTK-TV with more.
The vessel Marin Gas Roxana is en route to the LNG Canada facility in Kitimat to deliver a cargo of liquefied natural gas for equipment testing. The delivery is expected to arrive in early April, and a spokesperson for LNG said the delivery is critical for the safe startup and commissioning process now underway, and to achieving first cargo by 2025. Introducing LNG to the facility is required to cool the LNG tank and operate equipment at cryogenic or low temperature conditions in early testing. According to LNG Canada, on its arrival at the Triple Island Pilot Station, a team of BC Coast pilots will board the LNG carrier and guide the carrier to the LNG Canada Marine Terminal in Kitimat, a distance of 159 nautical miles. One high-sea marine escort tug will be at the pilot station to provide escort service to the LNG carrier. Upon arrival in Kitimat, high-sea marine harbor tugs will assist the carrier in berthing at the LNG Canada Marine Terminal jetty. LNG Canada anticipates the discharge will take 3 to 4 weeks to complete. On completion, the LNG carrier will leave in the same way it came, and the BC Coast pilots will disembark at the Triple Island Pilot Station, and the carrier will depart Canadian waters. This is the only anticipated shipment of LNG to the facility. For CFTK-TV News in Terrace, I'm Jayleen Matthews.
And according to the BC Ministry of Citizen Services, it was revealed that residents in Fort Babine now have access to both high-speed internet and expanded cell services. Due to the cellular infrastructure that was both built and operated by TELUS, 47 households in Fort Babine can now access high-speed internet services. These services will allow for better cellular connections for a nearly 6-kilometer stretch of Fort Babine Road that is adjacent with Lake Babine. TELUS committed over $230,000 of their own money to this project, and the province of BC put forth over $2 million towards it as well. Those funds add to the around $584 million that the provincial government has used to expand connectivity throughout BC. Now moving over to international news, 4 dual citizens from Canada and China have been executed for drug-related crimes, and the Canadian government has come out to condemn the acts. Rachel Aiello of CTV News has more over in Ottawa.
We strongly condemn the execution.
Canada's foreign minister confirmed 4 Canadians were executed in China earlier this year. All dual citizens charged with drug-related crimes.
This is an issue that I've been following very, very closely personally for months.
In a statement, Global Affairs said Canada strongly condemns China's use of the death penalty and insisted Canada repeatedly called for clemency for these individuals at the senior-most levels. Jolie said that top-level diplomacy included outreach from both her and then Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. The government says Canadian officials are providing consular assistance to the victims' families. Speaking as someone who spent more than 1,000 days detained in China, Michael Kovrig called China's actions completely unnecessary.
This is Beijing demonstrating once again that it never misses an opportunity to miss an opportunity.
China's embassy in Ottawa also confirmed the executions, stating the country always imposes severe penalties for drug crimes. The embassy said the facts in these cases were clear and the evidence was sufficient, and said Chinese authorities fully guaranteed the rights and interests of the Canadian nationals concerned.
While China executes more people than any other country in the world, it is rare for them to do this with foreigners, so this is a deeply troubling development.
Those who keep close tabs on Beijing are concerned for the more than 100 Canadians in Chinese prisons right now, and warn these killings are a sign efforts to repair relations may not go far.
The timing of the execution, I don't think is accidental. It's just to show to Canada, look, you will have to make concessions if you want to see the relationship improve.
The Canadian government has confirmed that Robert Schellenberg of Abbotsford, BC, who was sentenced to death by a Chinese court in 2019 for drug smuggling, was not one of the Canadians executed.
And after a week of being sworn in as Prime Minister, according to reports, Prime Minister Carney will be calling a snap federal election this upcoming Sunday that would start a vote as early as April 28th, with the date of May 5th being the latest of the options. Since Justin Trudeau resigned as Prime Minister and because of Donald Trump's relationship with Canada over the past few months, the Liberal Party has seen a notable uptick in the polls. According to Nanos research from a survey released on Tuesday, the Liberals trail the Conservative Party by 1% at 34%, while the Conservatives sit at 35%. Now back to local news. It was announced from the City of Terrace yesterday that parts of the Howe Creek Trail as well as the Skeena Viewpoint Trail would be closed throughout the day starting on Wednesday over the next little bit while some maintenance work takes place. However, each of the mentioned trails are going to be reopening in the evenings, so people can still use them, but it'll likely have to be when conditions are a little chillier and without much natural light. This announcement came not long after the city said that they would be working with several partners on making improvements to the Wolfpack Trail on Terrace Mountain. But it's not currently clear if Terrace is planning on making any more alterations to their other local trails. And the most recent edition of the District of Kitimat's council meeting saw the council approve a pair of grant applications that the district will be making. The applications are going to be done on behalf of the Kitimat Flying Club after representatives of the club made a presentation to the council. One application will be seeking $35,000 and the other will aim to get $200,000 in order to cover the cost of a Kitimat Air Park master plan, as well as to purchase maintenance equipment. A different part of the meeting also saw the council adopt the 3 Blueberry Avenue official community plan amendment and the zoning amendment bylaw. These adoptions mean that the property on 3 Blueberry Avenue can have 4 dwelling units on site. Coming up next, cameras catching and analyzing positive signs in the BC wildlife. Hello and welcome back to CFTK-TV. Well, cameras in southern BC have captured positive signs of wildlife, including the return of multiple key animals that have seen a drop in population over the years. Michelle Bernero from CTV has more on this topic.
A cougar wandering through the bush in the Coquitlam watershed, a curious bear in the Seymour one. These just some of the images captured by Metro Vancouver's watershed cameras in the past year or so.
It feels like you're right there with them, so it's pretty cool stuff.
And there's been a return of once vanished wildlife in our region.
We've had some species return that haven't existed on the landscape for many decades.
Species, Montgomery says, like the Roosevelt elk that were reintroduced by the province into adjoining areas and have since made their way back to Metro Vancouver's watersheds.
With those elk populations, there's often predators that come with that. So we've actually seen a return of gray wolves.
That's right, wolves like this one.
There are some color variations within those populations. So certainly some are fairly starkly black colored and others tan colored.
Wolves are in abundance in other parts of the province, but much to the surprise of many, wolves were spotted on Metro Vancouver's wildlife cameras in 2019.
I don't think I ever really anticipated seeing wolves in our areas. They certainly weren't around even 10 years ago. And so it's a pretty remarkable and speedy recovery of these populations.
The Capilano, Seymour, and Coquitlam watersheds make up about 600 square kilometers of intact habitat and wildlife landscapes. Videos and photos from the wildlife cameras are shared with provincial biologists and support research.
I think it shows that our ecosystems and our biodiversity is increasing because it's attracting these keystone species into areas that we haven't seen. I think it shows that our watersheds are incredibly healthy.
A healthy ecosystem for fish and wildlife is also critical to the clean water supply that goes to the 3 million residents in Metro Vancouver, and a high functioning ecosystem is really critical for that clean water supply.
The camera is providing not just important information, but a peek into the wild. Michelle Bernoro, CTV News, Vancouver.
And now we turn to the local weather forecast for tonight and for the week ahead. Tonight on the north coast should see periods of rain with winds coming from the southeast at 30 kilometers per hour, increasing to 70 over the coastal sections. And the winds should die down sometime in the evening. The low should be +3. And for this week's forecast, we're seeing a slow increase in temperature, but still rainy conditions going forward, except for Monday, which has the high of the week at 10 degrees, while the low should be 4 degrees on Friday and Saturday night. In Terrace and Kitimat, tonight should see periods of rain with winds coming from the south at 20 kilometers per hour, becoming lighter later in the evening, and the low should be +2. For this week, there is a chance of flurries on Saturday, then an uptick in temperatures starting on Monday, where we should see the high of 11 degrees trickle in along with cloudy conditions. The low of the week should be 1 degree tomorrow night. In the Bulkley Valley for tonight, it should be mainly cloudy with a 40% chance of rain showers, followed by a same chance of flurries this evening and overnight as well, and there should be a low of -4. And for this week's forecast, it should be sunny tomorrow with a drop to 5 degrees Saturday, but then an increase starting on Sunday with cloudy conditions for the next 3 days following that, along with a chance of snow on Sunday. The high will be 9 degrees on Sunday, and the low should be -4 tomorrow night. And now we turn our attention to our roadside report from around the Northwest. For additional updates, check out drybc.ca. Highway 16 sees utility work, water pooling, construction, and more utility work in Indaco. There's also utility work scheduled tomorrow at 8 a.m. in Fraser Lake. Highway 37 has roadside brushing north of Lake Hells Lake, slippery sections, and compact snow from Belle 2 to the Yukon border. Highway 37A has bridge maintenance and slippery sections. The Nisga'a Highway has fog patches and water pooling, and Telegraph Creek Road has compact snow and muddy sections. These are what the cameras were looking like from around the Northwest. Still to come, the struggle of transporting alcohol products between different provinces. Hello again. Well, in a time where American products such as alcohol are coming off of Canadian shelves, selling to different provinces still remains as an issue for those working in the industry. Here is Paul Hollingsworth of CTV News with more.
Vineyard General Manager Will Roman says the sale of alcohol in Canada is inefficient and is limiting his profitability.
I'm not set up for success because of that.
Wineries like this one in Lincoln, Ontario are not allowed to deal directly with most bars and restaurants in other provinces. They must first sell to the local provincially run distributor. Finding improvements for interprovincial trade was the focus at this panel discussion in Halifax.
I can't say how many times I've heard it's easier for me to access Alabama than Alberta.
In Nova Scotia, government rules require all booze to flow through the Nova Scotia Liquor Corporation before being sold.
If we were able to get that easier at a more affordable price that we could introduce our guests to, then that would be a win for everyone.
Bar owner Jeff Van Horn believes removing some of these trade barriers could help his bottom line and offer support for small businesses across the country.
We wouldn't be serving our community if we weren't serving products that are local and support the Canadian economy.
Selling first to the Nova Scotia Liquor Corporation instead of directly to small businesses can also cause delivery delays.
They cannot contact us directly and be like, hey, Rosewood, we want to order this product at this amount of cases.
Roman also can't offer bars and restaurants a cheaper deal. Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston says he's working on a solution as provinces struggle through some of the same hurdles in the U.S.-Canada trade war.
Free trade in Canada. It's one country. We should trade freely within our countries.
Houston is calling for sweeping changes to trade barriers in general, not just the rules that impact the sale of alcohol. Paul Hollingsworth, CTV News, Halifax.
And more information has come out about the reason for the airplane crash that happened last month over in Toronto. And even watching the clip now, it is still surprising that not even one death emerged from this crash with over 80 people on board. Sean Leathong from CTV News has the rest.
The preliminary report issued by the Transportation Safety Board this morning says that the Delta CRJ 900 that crash-landed at Pearson Airport last month was descending far too quickly in the final few seconds.
Well, everything was normal right up until about the 150-foot mark.
In a video released by the TSB today, the chain of events are detailed.
The side stay attached to the aircraft's right main landing gear fractured, the landing gear retracted, and the wing root fractured between the landing gear and the fuselage.
According to aviation expert Phil Dirty, the aircraft was descending at a rate of over 1,100 feet per minute, while the landing gear on the plane is designed to withstand a maximum of just over 700 feet per minute.
With Endeavour Air, their classification of a hard landing is anything over 600 feet per minute. So like I said, when they impacted the ground, it was way beyond the structural limits of the aircraft.
Once the landing gear failed, the plane impacted and rolled onto its right side.
The right wing detached from the fuselage, releasing a cloud of jet fuel, which caught fire while the aircraft began to slide along the runway.
Interviews with passengers on the day of the crash spoke to how the landing seemed normal until the last few seconds.
And when we hit, it was just a super hard, hit the ground.
Everything, drop it.
Of the 80 people on board the flight from Minneapolis to Toronto, 21 people were sent to hospital and no one was killed.
The question remains is why there was such a high rate of descent. Usually at about the 100 feet mark, we're starting to pull back, the 150 feet, they're pulling back on the power, also starting to level out the aircraft to reduce the descent rate. But that didn't happen. The descent rate actually increased. So it begs to wonder what was going on in the cockpit.
The TSB is saying they ran multiple simulations to better understand the circumstances surrounding the crash, and their final report will be issued much later.
Sean Leathong, CTV News.
And now we take a look at the stock market, where we have a mix of everything today, including a drop in the Canadian dollar. The Canadian dollar is down 1/100th of a penny. The price of gold is up $2.60. Oil is up $1.16. Natural gas is down 27 cents, and aluminum is up $5. In Toronto, the TSX is down about 9 points. The Venture Index is up 2.35. In New York, NASDAQ is down 59.16, and the Dow Jones is down 11.31. Still ahead, another meeting call between Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky, which was a little more positive this time around. Welcome back to our final segment. Well, it was announced by the District of Kitimat that on March 31st, their annual water main flushing program is set to start up once again. The district also mentioned that as their water crews gradually complete their work, residents might notice some discoloration in their water, but is said to be only temporary and doesn't affect the water's quality. Residents are still advised to run their water for a bit in order to clean up the discoloration. U.S. President Donald Trump spoke with Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky over the phone, which he deemed as a positive one overall, especially when you consider the two's meeting 3 weeks ago. Joy Malvin has more over in Washington.
It was a positive sign. Ukraine bringing home prisoners of war in a swap with Moscow, one of the largest exchanges since Russia invaded. This, as President Trump described his hour-long conversation with Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky as a very good telephone call, adding they're very much on track to get Russia and Kyiv on the same page towards peace. Far cry from their explosive blow-up in the Oval Office just weeks ago.
Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not winning.
I know.
You're not winning this. You have a damn good chance of coming out okay because of us.
Mr. President.
Zelensky agreed to stop attacks on Russian energy infrastructure one day after Vladimir Putin agreed to the same. But both sides accuse each other of continuing the fight, striking residential areas and a Ukraine power station overnight. President Trump making an unusual offer to Zelensky, a takeover of Ukraine's nuclear power plants.
He said that the United States could be very helpful in running those plants with its electricity and utility expertise. American ownership of those plants would be the best protection for that infrastructure.
Despite verbal agreements by Putin, Ukrainians have little faith in his word, and the Kremlin still has conditions that Ukraine be cut off from Western weapons and intelligence. And yet the president can't say enough about Putin.
Talked about a lot of things and toward getting it to peace. Putin actually said to me, if you're my friend, I'd hate to see you as my enemy.
It's not clear when this temporary ceasefire will take hold. There'll be further talks in Saudi Arabia this weekend. President Trump, though, is optimistic he can get a full ceasefire within 2 weeks.
And the Vancouver Canucks look to make their push to the playoffs with a crucial schedule ahead to fight for the last spot in the Western Conference. The group remains positive, though, especially with an impressive win against the Winnipeg Jets just 2 nights ago. St. Jean Alexander has our final story of the day.
If there was any doubt, this certainly sent a message. Vancouver put other teams on notice again and again. They may be on the edge, but not out, proving they can compete and win against the best.
I think it's a huge win, and it should give our group a lot of confidence and just show that, we can beat anyone on any given night.
Besser is playing like a weight has been lifted off his shoulders. Pedersen like the elite teammate we remember. And the captain's back.
Each game has a new personality, and you don't know, when you're going to break through. So hopefully he can kind of get on a roll here.
Because the Canucks know there have been huge victories this season, high hopes, and then momentum fizzled.
This is great. Enjoy it for 5 minutes, and then we got to get back to reality. That we got to go into St. Louis. I mean, that's just the world we live in.
How big of a threat do you perceive St. Louis to be?
Former assistant GM on Harrison Price.
Well, first of all, I believe St. Louis is their chances of making the playoffs are greater than the Vancouver Canucks at this point in time. I think the schedule favors them clearly.
It's not that he doesn't think Vancouver will clinch, but the Canucks are playing some of the best, including a familiar face in New York.
Miller scores! Welcome back!
6 teams on the road now who are just as hungry. St. Jean Alexander, CTV News, Vancouver.
And that'll be all for tonight. We'll be back tomorrow at 5, 6, 6:30, and 11 o'clock for our final broadcast of the week. Thank you very much for watching, and have a good evening.